All right, states, you may proceed. And each side, you will have 20 minutes.
Counsel. Judge. Ladies and gentlemen, on June 1st, 2025, in Bexar County, Texas, James Ross, the defendant charged, committed the offenses of 1 count of aggravated robbery, 2 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and 1 count of unlawful possession of a firearm by a felon. Now, I'm going to talk to you a bit about the elements in the law in this case. When you retire to the jury room, you're going to get the same packet. This is the charge of the court that Judge just read to you. Within this document contains all of the law that will govern your deliberations, okay? And now we're going to break through the elements of each offense that we have proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt. The first offense is aggravated robbery. So a person commits aggravated robbery in the state of Texas if, while committing a theft and with intent to obtain control or maintain control of property, he intentionally or knowingly threatens or places another in fear of imminent bodily injury or death. That's just robbery. Now, by the defendant using or exhibiting a deadly weapon, this aggravates the robbery, thus becoming aggravated robbery. Now, the underlying predicate of these offenses is theft. So theft is committed when an individual unlawfully appropriates property with intent to deprive the owner of that property. Now, it's important to note that the fact that the property sought be actually obtained is not required. It's sufficient to show an intent that they obtain control of that property. So whether or not they're successful does not negate the fact that a robbery or aggravated robbery occurred. A deadly weapon is defined on page 4 of that charge of the court. A firearm is a deadly weapon per se. The display of this deadly weapon in and of itself constitutes a threat of imminent harm. Now, aggravated assault, the underlying of that is assault. So assault occurs when an individual intentionally or knowingly threatens another with imminent bodily injury. The use or exhibiting of a deadly weapon aggravates this assault, thus giving us aggravated assault. Now, finally, the last offense charged, unlawful possession of a firearm by a felon. Y'all know, as Judge read, there's a lot of words going on, but really it boils down to 2 variations. Okay, so after conviction, before the 5th anniversary of the release from confinement, release from community supervision, parole, or mandatory parole, a felon is not allowed to possess a firearm, period. There's also the other variation is after the 5th anniversary or that time period, right? Whichever's later, you cannot possess a firearm anywhere but your home. Now, I want to draw specific attention to page 14 of this charge. It states that you are not allowed to let bias, prejudice, or sympathy play a role in reaching a verdict in this case. And similarly, I want you to take special attention to page 13, where it states, you are not to consider and must wholly disregard any statements of counsel during this trial that or argument that are not in harmony with the law or supported by the evidence. Specifically, I want you to remember that when defense gets up here and say, because nothing was stolen, there was no robbery. Okay, now my partner here, Mr. Prater, is going to get up here and tell you how the elements fit into the law. I'm sorry, the facts fit into the law under the elements. So Judge will reserve the remaining of our time.
Defense, are you ready to proceed? Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, jury, good morning. Got 20 minutes to do this, and so my life is on the line here, so I would like to break this up into sections. Okay. First part, do with aggravated robbery. As she said, aggravated robbery means that you use the gun in the commission of a theft. And I would like to point out that there was no theft. There was not even an intent for theft. As the evidence shows, the defendant went to this shop as instructed to receive pay. And he left the shop, sent someone in to get a better understanding of how he was to collect his money. And she returned with an instruction to bring him back so that he could collect his money. There was never any intent to steal anything. There was nothing stolen on top of that. So the entire inference of a theft taking place doesn't even fit in this category. It was a small piece of money that was sought out to be collected for an enormous amount of work that was done. The defendant was friends with these people. There was no intention whatsoever. There was no weapon found or otherwise. The display that was put on yesterday with the detective, I don't think y'all got to see the detective's interview with the defendant, but what it showed was.
Judge, I'm gonna object to that. That video and that interview, it's not evidence.
All right, the objection will be sustained.
Correct. All right. I'll give you, imagine this. A cell phone and a wallet. Sort of like this is the wallet. And it being behind the cell phone. Can't really put this side on it when I approach, you know?
Yes.
Okay, because this will scratch up the screen of a cell phone. So being that this will scratch up the screen of the cell phone, the flat part is on top of the cell phone. So like holding it like this could be considered. Police have killed people for less than this. A cell phone is a wider grip, but with this on top of it could be considered to be like, it holds a shape of a gun. I can understand that. I can't testify. All right. There was no weapon. There was no intent nor necessity for a weapon. These are people that I worked for that I was going to try to collect monies from. There was no theft. There was no robbery. There was no intent or any type of, that wasn't even an issue. Furthermore, Elisa Ramirez, one of the alleged victims, Daphne also, and Janice Jones, they all knew where the defendant lived. They had all been to the defendant's home. They interacted in several different ways. It was a lot of stuff done. And so for this to occur, for them not to send the police directly to the defendant's home, but being charged with aggravated robbery just makes no sense. They know where the defendant lived, and they testified to that. I would like to point out the testimony of Daphne, the blonde-haired woman who came up here. So certain people, when you deal with them, they're hard to deal with and they're hard to talk to. And when you approach issues that have a deeper significance to them, and they may try to not let certain parts of that idea come to the light, they would add a manipulative tactic of fear. You're scaring me right now, I can't. And so when you try to, there's no way to approach that without making me seem like an aggressive man. Whereas I'm just trying to get a piece of that information out to share with other people. Okay. So I really feel like I wasn't able to share with you everything that took place because I couldn't fully question her. You know, it's a matter of fairness. Now, that's a manipulative tactic, and it serves to criminalize and place in the minds of people fear because of me. Okay. I look this way. I cannot change it. I wouldn't if I could. God gave this to me. Because it scares someone else the way that I look, I can't do nothing about that. When they act like they're not scared and pretend to be my friend, but really scared of me the whole time, it puts me in a bad position. The way that this society is set up, all somebody got to do is pick up the phone and call 911 and say, hey, this guy did this to me. And 911 is going to rush out there and they're going to arrest this man and they're going to put him in jail and he got to pay thousands of dollars to get out of jail if he can even pay it. If not, he's forced to, like me, lost everything I had, my home, my pets, my car, my life, a full-time student, a model, an actor. Well, not really, because this little $100 that I was supposed to get from this job.
Judge, I'm gonna object to this improper argument. Things are in evidence.
All right, that will be sustained.
Thank you.
Okay. Everything is lost in your life once you go to jail. And all it takes for you to go to jail is for somebody to call and say, hey, I seen this guy do something.
Judge, I'm gonna object to this. This is way outside of anything that was involved in this trial. It's improper argument. It's not in evidence.
All right, that objection will be overruled.
That's all it takes. Certain people in the community know that and use it as a means to control a man, otherwise not in their control, to force him to abide by their will. And this evil, dastardly tactic is something that so many men have fallen to. That's all it takes. 911 call. Have you ever walked into a room and when you walked in, everybody got quiet? Like the air sucked out when you walked in? That happens to me all the time. So I have to be extra careful with the way that I walk, the way that I talk, the way that I interact with people, my level of frustration that may show on my face at any point in time, because it scares people. Now, if that scares people, how am I to live? I suffer emotion just like you do, and you. So when I get upset, if it scares you and someone calls the police and say, this man is a suspect, more back to the point. We heard the 911 calls. Now, the second time the defendant, as testified to, went back to the shop, as testified to by Daphne, as soon as he walked in, he was yelling and loud. You were demanding money walking in the door. That simply makes no sense. How could it be? The defendant was given instruction by his girlfriend, as testified to come back to the shop at between 5 and 6 to collect his money. That's the instruction that Janice Jones gave for me. So for her to give me that instruction means that upon our first interaction, she didn't feel threatened. She didn't feel threatened, because I didn't threaten her. Upon the first interview with me and Janice, I did get upset when she told me she didn't have my money, because you instructed me to come up here to begin with for that. When she didn't have it, she was saying something to me, and all I heard was like, "Yo, anybody know Charlie Brown? Raise your hand if you know Charlie Brown. Everybody heard of Charlie Brown? You know, Charlie Brown's mom used to, when she was talking to him, go, whoa, 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 whoa. This is all I heard. And I was like, let me get out of here. Baby, can you go tell her?
10 minutes.
Can you go ask her what she want me to do to get my money? And so she did. And she did. And I came back to get my money. So there was no yelling and arguing. There was no, none of that. Now, upon her telling me again that she didn't have my money, yes, I had a bad reaction, as we all are humans are capable of. And in this situation, I've learned what I already knew over again. Control yourself at all times. I let this get to me because I had plans for this money, and what I did was verbally, what was like a, what the, and that was enough to seeing her diving for cover and this other one hiding behind the chair. I'm like, what y'all jumping for? Like, whatever, man. Look, give me my money, man. Why you keep playing with me? With my phone in my hand and my wallet. Didn't I work for her? Didn't I do everything she asked me to do? This is how you do me? I respect my elders. I protect my elders, and I was taught better than to raise my voice at my elders. And I let this situation get away from me because I felt played. I was impressed by this woman's shop. Let me get back to this thing before I run out of time. Okay, as to the crimes. As to the crimes. So for aggravated robbery, it got to be a gun. It got to be a theft. Even though the theft didn't have to take place, it had to be an attempt at a theft. None of these are the case. They made it clear that one, nothing was stolen, and two, we heard the phone calls. We know that the defendant's entire intention was to go and collect money that was owed to him. Everybody knew it's clear that if there was money owed to him. The work that he did, the money that, on top of the money that was owed to him, after the interview with the detective, she paid. She paid him this money that he went to collect. All of this for that. Had she given the defendant the money when he went to collect it, there would have been none of this. But after it's all done and said, and the police are involved and lives are on the line, now you pay? It's some laudable fixture of what you created? This is the result of it. Only I have to suffer. There's no theft at all. There was no assault for Daphne or Elisa, because there was no pointing a gun at them. When I was talking to them in that heated moment that was recorded by the 911 call, my phone in my hand. Talking like this. Why you keep playing with me? Like, what? Didn't I work? Didn't I operate in good faith? Didn't I work for free 4 days? At the end of the second day of work, I asked for a portion of my pay. Not the entire thing, because I know she said that we aren't gonna get paid till the end of the job. I said, can I have $20? Get a little something to eat tonight and have gas money to make it back tomorrow so I can complete this job for you. That's my entire pay. So that's all it took. Another man that was there gave me $20 as testified to. But at that point, I felt like her whole intention was to get this work out of me and not pay me in the end. So I was like, if you don't give me anything, if you don't give me anything at all, I'm not coming back to work for you anymore. She took that as a threat. I took that as a sign of
5 minutes.
I took that as a sign of what could possibly be coming from this thing. I worked for you for 2 days in good faith, not getting any money. Asked you for a portion of my pay so that I could come back and continue working for you. And you're not even willing to give it to me. Took the whole attitude, became angry with me. I'm like, you know what? You're trying to get over on me. You know what? Keep it. All that you can keep. I'll get it later or whatever. I'm not coming back up here to work for you again. And I did. I did everything I could to stay away from going back up to the shop. Only reason I went up there is because she instructed me to. That being the case, there's no theft. There was no attempted theft. There was no gun as they testified to. But you know, do any of y'all are any of y'all aware of Breaking Bad? It's a series on AMC. Okay, it's a scene in Breaking Bad, and I gotta kind of hurry up and wrap it up. But this scene in Breaking Bad, this dude is in his house and he's smoking drugs. Okay, and outside of his window, he sees Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, on their bikes. Okay, they come into his house and to push the doorbell. Right, as they doing this, the drugs kick in. Boom. And when the drugs kick in, all of a sudden, this looked like biker gang pulling up on him. He's like, oh no, you know, and then so he runs and hides in the closet and like, because it's a big biker gang outside, and these little skinny dudes, Jehovah's Witnesses with their helmet on for their bikes, and like, hey, so this whole inference that everyone's given that testified about me coming in here as this big bad man is doing all this hollering and screaming, demanding money is just not true. That's not the way it went. It's not the way it worked. That's not how I even operated. I had permission to be where I was at. I was in fact invited twice for the purpose of collecting monies owed. There was no intent to steal anything. There was no weapon. There was no weapon found. There's no crime here except them being mad at me because I left them to have to pay someone else to do the work that I would have done. And I guarantee you they did not do as a good job. So they gonna show me, I'm gonna show him by putting me in this position. I couldn't understand it myself, but then I found in my mind that that's the only thing it could be. When I refused to come back and work for you, now a woman's held no fury like a woman scorned. Now you gotta go find somebody else to try to get the quality of work that I was giving you. It's difficult. I work hard. Defense rests, Your Honor. Thank y'all.
All right, State, you have 16 minutes.
Thank you, Judge. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long week. And unfortunately, my friends, this is the hard part. This is when y'all have all the odds in front of you, all the testimony, everything that we have, and now it's time for y'all to make the call. If y'all remember in jury selection when I was talking to y'all about guilt, innocence, what we're talking about right now, basically the question, did he do it? Did I do my job? Did I prove to y'all beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Ross over there committed all these counts? And the answer is yes. Let me take y'all through why. Let's see. Count one. On June 1st, 2025, James Ross, while in the course of committing theft of property and with the intent to obtain and maintain control of said property, intentionally knowingly threatened and placed Janice Jones in fear of imminent bodily injury and death, and the defendant used or exhibited a deadly weapon, to wit, a firearm. There's another wrinkle there where it's robbery now. You know what the difference is between aggravated robbery and robbery? That. So the facts. This isn't TV shows. This is real life. This is what y'all heard. This is what was directly in front of y'all. Janice Jones' testimony. Terms of the employment were clear. No payment until the job was done. Mr. Ross did not complete the job. And he wasn't going to wait for the job to be done. Even though he was told everyone gets paid when the job's finished, he wanted his money now. 911 call, where it's confirmed from the defense's own witness that that's his voice. I'm not waiting for you to get it finished. In order to get his money that he did not have a right to because he did not complete the job and it was not time for payment, he threatened Janice Jones. Give me my fucking money. I know where your store's at. I know where you live. Does anyone here think that that is not a threat against her? To say, I know where you are. I know where you sleep at night. Maybe I'll come pay you a visit. That's a mob threat if I've ever heard one.
Objection, Your Honor.
Janice testified.
Sustained.
Janice testified that she saw James Ross pull a silver gun, wave it around, and point it at Dawn and Alyssa before putting the gun under her throats. Now, defense is trying to say that this is all a plot by Ms. Jones and these two other women to squirrel him out of that money. He says that Ms. Jones is a vindictive, manipulative person. Listen to her talking on 911 call number 2. Does she sound like she's being angry? Does she sound like, you saw her up there. Does she sound like she was being manipulative? Does she seem like someone who would lose it on somebody? There's only one person losing it on that 911 call. Count number 2. On or about June 1st, 2025, James Ross did intentionally and recklessly threaten imminent bodily injury and death to Alyssa Ramirez by pointing a deadly weapon at and in the direction of the complainant, and the defendant used or exhibited a deadly weapon, to wit, a firearm. How do we prove this up to you? Alyssa's testimony. In terms of employment were clear. No payment until the job was done. Same as Janice. James did not complete the job, and he wasn't going to wait for the job to be done. He wanted his money now. He came in that day. She hid behind a chair, and we can hear her. We can hear her on the 911 call number 2. That's her 911 call, where she called 911. She sat on her phone as she testified to, and we can hear the whole thing in real time as it's happening. Alyssa testified she's hid behind a chair. And when James Ross saw her, he pulled the chair away and pointed a gun down at her. She described the gun not as a silver gun, but as a dark gray revolver. Gray and silver. As I said in jury selection, I want y'all to think. I want y'all to use common sense. Are gray and silver pretty close? And number 3. On June 1st, 2025, James Ross did intentionally, knowingly, and recklessly threaten imminent bodily injury and death to Daphne Smith by pointing a deadly weapon at in the direction of the complainant, and the defendant used a deadly or exhibited a deadly weapon, to wit, firearm. The facts. Testimony by Dawn, by Daphne Smith. Again, the terms of employment were clear. No payment until the job's done. James Ross did not wait. He wanted his money now. Daphne testified that James Ross, when he came in, picked her up by her sports bra and threw her against the wall. That testimony is backed up by Alyssa and by Janice. They all said he came in and did the same thing to Daphne. Daphne described the gun as silver and the shape of an L. Remember, she was up there and she was doing, it was in this shape, not this little shape like this here. She did not describe it as just one little spot. She described it in the shape of an L. Y'all remember? That does not jive with the defense's theory. Daphne said that she saw James Ross. She demonstrated for y'all that he pulled it from the front of his shorts. He didn't pull it from his sock. He didn't pull it from the back of his pants. He pulled it from the front. Use your common sense. Do people keep their wallets up in the front of their shorts? Or do they put another object there? Daphne testified that she saw James Ross put the gun to her head.